has done a number on it and driven away. You'd like to get that guy and see if his head could do a 360, you know. You'd like to turn it around so he could get a look at his own backbone without using a mirror, you know what I mean? But you can't do that. Society says no.
Why are these people standing in line? Very simply, they want terror. Knowing what scares these innocent people was... popularity of the horror novel. Recently, at one point, for the first time in history, the New York Times bestseller list had 5 of the top slots filled with titles by this one man. He is so popular, people have entered lotteries just to sit around a campfire and listen to him tell stories.
Edgar Allan Poe said terror is the finest emotion, and I would agree with that. Below that, a slightly grosser emotion is horror, and below that is the gross out, you know. And I go for terror in what I do, but if I can't get terror, I'll go for horror. And I'm not proud. If I can't get horror, I'll go for the gross out.
He called for his new wife, and there was no answer. And when he went up to the bedroom, he thought she changed the sheets because they weren't white anymore, they were red. Her throat was cut, and when she came close to him, supposedly this slit in her neck spoke and said, "I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead." And there's a story, an EC comic book story, where there's a guy and his wife who decide that they're going to kill each other. And he's real fat and she's real skinny. And so he catches her, and he's got an air compressor. And he says, "Try this, Mabel." And he stuffs the hose down her throat and turns it on. And she blows up until finally she explodes. And guts go everywhere. And then as he's walking down the stairs, she set up a weight over the stairs, and it comes down and it squashes him to a shadow. So it's a little irony. It's good for your blood. That's the gross out.
But what draws King himself to horror? Was there something in his childhood that affected him?
I'm warped. You know, I am. You don't do this sort of thing if you're all right. There wasn't anything in my childhood except I did kill a few people, but they never found the bodies, so I think I'm all right. How do people come to believe in the unbelievable? I mean, we do, and these supernatural things are always analogs for real things that we face in our own lives. For instance, it's very difficult for any of us to believe that we're going to croak, you know, that we're just going to fall over and then we're going to be dead forever. But we have to come to a belief in that unbelievable thing, or else we can't, you know, live our lives with any sort of a goal, you know, with an idea that these things have an ending and that we won't always be doing tomorrow what we did today.
For every king story, there is an underlying form of fear. The fear may be emotional, psychological, physical, or unreal. For example, the stories Christine and Maximum Overdrive both reflect King's preposterous fear of machines, such as cars, coming to life and killing people.
Now, this is an idea that I played with myself enough. I had a story once where there was a killer refrigerator, and it was finally put away in the town dump where it captured birds. It was like a trap. Birds would fly in, it would go, and finally they found a kid in it and melted it down.
All right, baby!
Nobody believes in the vampires, really. Nobody believes in the car that runs by itself. Okay, nobody believes in a car that runs by itself. That's a ridiculous idea. On the other hand, if we turn around, we can say we have an entire societal machine in terms of our technology that's running by itself. It's out of control, and nobody seems to know how to stop it. It's spewing out weapons, substandard cars, razors that don't work after the third time that you plug it in, jetliners that drop their motors. So who is kidding who? It's like dreaming away.
But what really scares King?
There's a lot of creepy things out there in life. The idea that we're sitting worldwide on enough nuclear weapons to create a new asteroid belt between Mars and Venus is enough to scare the hell out of me.
In a book of essays called Kingdom of Fear, King reveals 10 major fears that govern his reign of terror. Fear of the dark, fear of squishy things, fear of deformity, fear of snakes, rats, closed-in places, insects such as spiders, fear of death, fear of others or paranoia, and fear for someone else. Which one is your worst nightmare? Think a moment. What is your worst fear? If Stephen King told you his, would you dare reveal your own?
The worst thing I can think of is going in to check one of my kids and finding one of them dead. Yeah, that's the worst thing I can think of.
In a moment, we'll return with a chilling story from King's personal experience. The story is The Woman in the Room, from the book Night Shift. And our scenes are from the film adaptation written and directed by Frank Darabont.
A lot of times, what seems like autobiography is just the writer's attempt to understand what an experience meant. You know, when I said earlier that I had written The Shining to try and understand these aggressive impulses that Father Knows Best had never prepared me for, the same thing is true about the death of my mother. You know, to write that story was an effort to understand what that meant. And you just happen to make a story out of it.
John is a bright young attorney destined to commit the perfect murder. He is about to learn from a convicted criminal that the murder will be perfect in every way, for it's the secret desire of the woman in the room.
Want me to leave the cup, Tony?
Turn him loose.
All right. Counselor, good of you to come.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. I ain't going nowhere.
Care to join me?
Geez, man, you look like a chef. What, you got some broad keeping you up nights?
No, not exactly. I've just been a little preoccupied.
What with?
My mother. She's dying.
Of what?
Cancer. It's abdominal cancer.
Tough break.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Oh, what are they doing for her?
Well, not a hell of a lot, you ask me. They gave her a cordotomy yesterday.
Cordotomy? Yeah, I know about those. It's supposed to take away the pain.
How'd you know that?
Yeah, a buddy of mine got both his legs blown to shit by a booby trap. And the problem was, he was lying in a puddle of mud for about an hour before we could get to him. So by the time I pulled him into a chopper, why, he had maggots crawling under his skin. Gangrene started killing him. Slowly. And the pain was just too much, so they gave him a cordotomy. Stuck a needle in his brain and just short-circuited his pain. Short-circuited just about everything else with it.
That's what they did to my mother.
Too bad.
She can't walk anymore. She says she still has pain.
Never go through that again. Not worth it.
What happened?
Killed a friend of mine.
I don't understand.
It was that buddy of mine I told you about. Oh, I got his legs blown away.
You killed him?
Yeah. It was my buddy. And I wasn't about to let him die of gangrene like that. After what the doctors did to him. Lying there, gaping his mouth open and shut like some kind of fish they dragged out of the water. Hell, he saved my life once. I owed him. What's the matter, counselor? You don't look so good.
You're good to come as often as you do, Johnny. You're a good son.
I brought you some pills from home.
Did you?
They're good for pain. It's an old prescription of yours. They're very strong.
Are they? Can I chew them?
I don't know. You could try one.
All right. Don't let them see.
Here you go. Does it taste bad? I won't.
No, not too bad.
You want another one?
Yes. Please.
My mother did die of cancer, and she died very painfully, and it was a very long, drawn-out death, the sort of death that only modern medicine can provide. With enough cures and enough keep them on their feet to, be the equivalent of the rack and the boot. It's the modern-day Inquisition is an attended death after, all the obituary says is a long illness, but that doesn't say anything about, the limbo of suffering that goes on during that illness under certain circumstances. But that's what I say when, it's not fair to trust anything that a writer says about himself, because that story ends with this guy pouring pills down his mother's throat to kill her, which is something that I never did. I wish, in retrospect, in some ways, that I had done that, because I think it would have spared her a lot of suffering.
Sitting with Stephen King is like sitting with a 13-year-old kid, and you're talking about monsters and, and Twilight Zone and things like that. And he's a multimillionaire, but it's like he's dirty T-shirts, purple boots, and that. But anyway, I think it's in his writing.
When I was a kid, 12, 13, 14, and just starting out on this, a lot of what I wrote took place in space. It took place in Texas. It took place anywhere but where I was, because where I was boring. I lived on a dirt road. I lived in a house where we had a dug well and the water dried up in the summertime, and then we used an outhouse. And there was a wasp's nest in one corner. So whatever you had to do, you did it in a big hurry to get out of there before they became too interested. And now that all seems sort of rustic and courier in eyes, but it wasn't. It didn't smell good. It was a tough life in a lot of ways. It wasn't very much money. A lot of the people that we knew were not very romantic. None of them looked like Richard Gere. A lot of them had facial problems, skin problems. They stuttered. Every now and then someone would get hauled away to the mental hospital for one thing or another. So I wanted to go away from all of that, because if you live something like that, you don't really want to inspect it. A lot of kids just do want to get away, and I was doing that in my imagination. In my imagination, every time I wrote a story, I was running away from home, which is probably why I never did run away from home. Okay, sorry. The worst thing about all this stuff is you sit and this sort of nasty grin surfaces on your face. People say, have you ever scared yourself? And once in a while I say, yeah, but mostly you just think about these things and you think, this is really great. Yeah.
If horror has an ultimate purpose in our lives, where does the attraction begin? What physically motivates us to go into a theater? And what motivates an author to sit and write horror, one story after another?
My idea about the audience is that you want to take them and say, hey, I'm your friend. Now come around the corner, because I want to show you something, and I think you'll really like it. And you get them around the corner in the dark where they can't get away, and then you do a number on them. That's all. But they like it. Mostly. They come back.
As far as marketing, all they really have to do, as far as I'm concerned, is put an ad in the paper and run a trailer on TV, and I'll be there. I'll go.
Trailers are great. I love 50s trailers. Because, Tash is a 50-foot woman. You ever seen a trailer on that? It's great. They're great stuff. They're great stuff. They're an intensification very often of what's in the picture, and it has to be said, very often all the best bits of the picture get them in the trailer.
Once a normal, voluptuously beautiful woman, she drove into a nightmare of horror and saw descending from the sky a titanic monster whose fearsome touch became a frightful curse. What she saw was beyond belief until others, too, faced its hideous, uncontrollable menace. Attack of the 50-foot woman, incredibly huge, with incredible desires for love and vengeance.
It's a 2-for-1 Monster Bazaar.
Below a certain level of excellence, a film needs to offer a little extra something to attract viewers to the box office. In this area of promotion, horror films have always been ingenious.
It's the curse of the mummy's tomb, and the Gorgon. He says the Gorgon. Both in petrifying color, you know. They will frighten you. Yeah.
How can you protect yourself from the forces of evil? Now, disguise yourself from the menace of Rasputin, the Mad Mother.
You will apologize for laughing at me.
It was traditional for horror films to come bearing gifts for the audience, whether in the form of plastic coins, magic seeds, insurance policies, or even this preposterous souvenir.
Your only hope is to get your free Rasputin beer as you enter the theater to see Rasputin, the Mad Monster.
Audience participation was a concept pioneered by horror filmmakers. Here, a fright break was promised to viewers of homicidals.
For the first time in screen history, a special interval will be provided during the running of this picture for refunding your admission. If you're unable to stand the almost unbearable suspense, the almost paralyzing shock of homicidal.
The producer, William Castle, had other tricks up his sleeve, always announced in his previews.
For years, I have searched for a unique way whereby a motion picture audience can actually decide the climax of a picture. I have found such a way. My latest picture, Mr. Sardonicus, offers something no audience has ever had before: the power to determine the fate of a character on the screen, the power to punish.
Mr. Sardonicus. His deeds form the fabric of nightmares.
When you come to see Mr. Sardonicus, you will receive a ballad like this. At a certain point in the picture, you will vote thumbs up or thumbs down. His punishment will depend on the result of your vote.
Ironically, the audience always voted thumbs down. But then William Castle never did produce a thumbs up version of the ending. He knew it would never be demanded. As if to punish the audience for their thirst for blood, Castle created the Tingler and announced his most famous movie gimmick. It involved the most direct form of audience participation imaginable and required $100,000 insurance on each audience member. Very simply, seats in the theater were wired, and at key points in the film, viewers got mild electric shocks. Today's previews carry on the tradition, especially at the low end of production. Troma Films, the leader of Grade Z movies, are instantly recognized through their previews. Their fans want horror, and we ask why.
It's part of life. It is life. Life is horrible. You'll get born, they beat you in the behind, they put you in the cold scale, then people die all around you. You wonder whether you're going to have enough food. The tax man comes, the rent is due. Life is horrible. I mean, right? I mean, there are a lot of nice things, too, but generally it's pretty scary.
Meet little Melvin. He's a 90-pound weakling. Everyone hated Melvin.
I'm going to take this mop and shove it down your throat.
They teased him.
I'm going to do it with you. Okay.
They taunted him. They tormented him until he had a horrifying accident and fell into a vat of nuclear waste. transforming little Melvin into a hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength. Melvin became the Toxic Avenger. The first superhero born out of nuclear waste.
In terms of subject matter, we get a lot of it out of the newspapers. The environmental problem was Toxic Avenger. The class of Nukem High dealt with the nuclear power plant.
Welcome to Tromaville High, an average American high school, with one exception. It's located only 1 mile away from a nuclear power plant. They said it was 100% safe. But they were wrong.
There's no danger, Governor. We have the situation well in hand.
Welcome to the class of Nukem High. Yes, at Nukem High, strange things are happening. The Honor Society has changed from a group of clean-cut preppies into a vicious gang of cretins.
We're the youth of today.
The class of Nukem High, where you'll learn the 3 R's. Reading, writing, and radiation. See the most explosive action of the year.
We have a certain vision of life. We're interested in small-town America, you know, typical American life. And our movies reflect our view of the American life as we see it.
The most mysterious, inexplicable, and incredible events often take place in the most ordinary places. Usually, these seemingly unexplainable occurrences are eventually explained, but every so often, they remain mysteriously incredible. Monster in the closet.
We ain't talking about no snake here. President declares national emergency.
Yes, it was something so hideous, so gruesome, so frightful, that it could only dwell in one place. Monster in the closet. It's coming out.
We do have one foot in fairly interesting themes, so that there's a little bit to chew on when you see a trauma movie. At least I believe so.
Sometime in the near future, a major earthquake will lay waste to the entire California coastline. From out of the rubble will rise a menace far more terrifying than the death and destruction. Surf Nazis. Welcome to California, where the beaches have become battlefields and the waves are a war zone. Only one person can ensure that surf Nazis must die. She's tough.
I want to buy a gun. Taste some of Mama's home cooking.
See the film that is creating a tidal wave of action all over the world. See Surf Nazis Must Die.
We don't think in terms of the future, in all honesty. I believe we will continue to create the kind of films we've been making, works of beauty and sentimentality. We will continue to do whatever it is we do.
Stephen King wrote a book called Dance Macabre, in which he talked about horror films. He said something that I really kind of subscribe to. Any horror movie, no matter how stupid it really appears, is really telling you something. It may be unintentional on the part of the filmmaker, but the basic generic horror setup is really a morality play. It always is, and it always comes down to that. And you can watch it and come away with something, even though it was an unintentional message. I think that's what fascinates me about horror. You know, what is it really about? It's about good and evil, one way or the other. There's a definition of horror. Let's say the one is left wing and one is right wing.
liberal left-wing horror really is, the evil is within us. You know, it's in our hearts. We are the evil ones. The right-wing horror is, they're out there to get us. And both work. Both of those approaches work, and it seems to me that depending on how you apply that kind of two approaches to horror, you're really kind of examining people and situations.
What you're doing, in a way, is taking on a great weight of the emotions that people are generally not allowed to express in polite cafe society.
Horror movies have been accused of everything, including pushing people to commit murder. But this is a welcome marketing opportunity for horror filmmakers. Consider this statement by Dr. William Bryan.
In 1960, I was consulted regarding a tragic case of a triple murderer who strangled his victims immediately after viewing the movie Psycho. His fascinating analysis under hypnosis, now a matter of record in my book, came to the attention of the producers of Dementia 13, who asked me to devise a method of preventing a recurrence of this tragedy.
You will now take the test prepared by Dr. Bryan to determine your ability to withstand shock. One wrong answer could mean you are a threat to your community. Have you ever spoken aloud to yourself in a mirror? Were you ever involved in what passed for an accident, but which you purposely caused? Did you ever do anything seriously wrong for which you felt absolutely no guilt? True or false? Death by drowning in a pond is best described as exciting. True or false? The most effective way of settling a dispute is with one quick stroke of the axe to your adversary's head.
I think we've all faced this at one time or another. There were supposedly copycat murders after Psycho. My view about this sort of thing when it happens is that the people who did it should not only be put in jail for having committed crimes, but should be sued for plagiarism. The fact is, a crazy person is going to do crazy things, and it may be that he'll get the idea to do those crazy things from a film like Taxi Driver or Carrie or Salem's Lot or Christine or some other thing. But I don't believe that either a creative artist or a society of people who appreciate art can be penalized for the few crazy people that are riding along the fringes of the herd.
If Psycho pushed someone to murder, the unindicted co-conspirator was Alfred Hitchcock. He was not only a master of terror, but also a master at drawing large crowds.
I've suggested that Psycho be seen from the beginning. In fact, this is more than a suggestion. It is required.
This requirement created captive audiences to Hitchcock's tape-recorded messages through loudspeakers before each show.
I insist that you do not tell your friends the little, tiny, horrifying secrets of Psycho after you see it.
The plan worked. But Hitchcock's effort had actually started months earlier in what was to become a classic preview.
In that window on the second floor, the single one in front. That's where the woman was first seen. Let's go inside. You see, even in daylight, this place still looks a bit sinister. Now, it was at the top of these stairs that the second murder took place. She came out of the door there and met the victim at the top. Of course, in a flash, there was the knife, and in no time, the victim tumbled and fell with a horrible crash. I think the back broke immediately and hit the floor. It's difficult to describe the way the twisting of the. Well, I won't dwell upon it. Come on, Dave. Of course, the victim, or should I say victims, hadn't any conception as to the type of people they would be confronted with in this house, especially the woman. She was the weirdest and the most... Well, let's go into her bedroom. Here's the woman's room, still beautifully preserved. And the imprint of her figure on the bed where she used to lay. I think some of her clothes are still in this wardrobe. This was the son's room, but we won't go in there because his favorite spot was the little parlor behind his office in the motel. Let's go down there. This young man, you had to feel sorry for him. After all, being dominated by an almost maniacal woman was enough to drive anyone to the extreme of, well, let's go in. Well, I suppose you'd call this his hideaway. His hobby, as you see, was taxidermy. Crow here, an owl there. An important scene took place in this room. There was a private supper here. And, oh, by the way, this picture has great significance because, let's go along to cabin number 1. I want to show you something there. All tidied up. The bathroom. Well, they've cleaned all this up now. Big difference. You should have seen the blood. The whole place was, well, it's too horrible to describe. Dreadful. And I'll tell you, there's a very important clue was found here. Down there. Well, the murderer, you see, crept in here. Very slowly, of course, the shower was on, there was no sound. And,
the real evil seems to me to be something that you can never quite get a hold of and touch. It squirts through your hands like mercury. A guy like this John Wayne Gacy, I mean, this guy killed dozens of kids, maybe hundreds of kids, and buried them, he tortured them. And yet you look at the man, you see pictures of him in his jail cell or when he was in the infirmary, and you see a fat man with jowls who's losing his hair. He looks like a retired baker. There was a devil inside him, some sort of a devil. But it's gone. Whatever it is left, and there's a broken connection that makes it very difficult for us to visualize that man in the basement of his house, cutting throats, literally disemboweling small children. We can imagine the act, God help us, but we can't see his face. We can't see his hands, We understand an Eichmann, intellectually. And again, we're talking about evil. We're talking about an essentially repetitive act. We're talking about assembly line death. We're talking about German soldiers who fell asleep on their posts at the crematoriums because it was the same thing day in and day out. And it wasn't 18-hour shifts. It wasn't 16-hour shifts. It was 20-hour shifts. 20 hours on, 4 hours off. And all there was to do is the same old thing. Dump the bodies in, break the bones out. So you look at this man, and whatever the evil was, whatever the devil was that was inside that man, before the Israelis killed him, what there was left was this retired bureaucrat who's looking around at people and saying, I didn't do anything. I filled in numbers in a ledger. Leave me alone. And finally, when they killed him, God help us all, you wondered why they even bothered, because whatever it was that killed all the Jews was gone. It wasn't in him anymore.